drugs specifically, which are a subset of those endocrine disruptors. So these are important issues in terms of our modern exposure to these cancer-causing, infertility-causing it sometimes as well, substances. All right, so I talked about a few of the contributors to that, right? We have plastic bottles, the inside substances, inside filming or coating the inside of cans that we can food in. There are many other substances that are xenoestrogens or are endocrine disruptors. And some of those are also in women's makeup. Many of them are. So if you're probably, well, some of you will be aware of the term parabens. Parabens are endocrine disruptors. And I believe they're estrogenic as well. So they're endocrine disruptors that affect the hormones of the woman wearing the makeup, and it's usually women wearing the makeup. So this is one of the things that I ask women to pay attention to, is what kind of makeup they're using, making sure that some of these toxic substances are not in their makeup. So we have all of these influences affecting our health in modern times, you know, and do we really need these substances? Well, in a lot of cases, no, we don't even need to have these substances in our environment. But, you know, there are many natural makeups that can be used nowadays. So there are many choices other than these poisonous, toxic makeups that are being widely distributed. You know, if you're buying the standard makeups like CoverGirl and all these things, stop, take a look. All right, so I'm going to take a little break because that's kind of a deep subject, and then when we get back, I'll talk more about how that interacts with other processes in your body. You're listening to A Path to Wellness on WSPF-DB.com, rhinoonair.com. talking about endocrine disruptors and the effects on your body of endocrine disruptors and what they are, and how they add to your toxic load and can affect your body, your thinking, your metabolism. Many different things are affected in your life and your quality of life and your overall wellness by endocrine disruptors. And we tend to, I think, as a society, especially in the United States, frankly, have this attitude of, well, everything causes cancer. What are you going to do? This kind of attitude is almost like a denial, or perhaps a kind of an ostrich kind of effect. I don't know how else to put that. It's like bury your head in the sand and let it all happen, right? But you have some control over that. You have an ability to affect your own destiny. You have the ability to affect your own health. You can put in effort to help yourself be more healthy, be better, and have a more vibrant life and have more wellness. You can do that. And by looking for things that take away from that wellness and getting them out of your life, you can make progress. And it's hard sometimes. It's hard for lots of reasons. Sometimes there are emotional attachments involved in things that you're doing. Like, you may like this particular makeup you're using. You may really like it. But if it's all full of parabens and talc, which you're probably hearing about in the media, containing asbestos, I've been talking about that for a decade. Now they finally had a lawsuit on it with Johnson & Johnson. But all these other substances, sodium lauryl sulfate, all these different substances that are PEG, polyethylene glycol, are endocrine disruptors. And these are all in makeup. They're in other things too. They're in plastics. There are many, many things that we use on a daily basis have these substances and are affecting our hormones and are affecting our health in general, and affecting our quality of life. And so we have individuals who have serious problems. We have infertility. Infertility has become rampant. I do practice quite a bit of infertility medicine in a natural approach. And in fact, I was on Channel 10 not long ago. They did a feature on some of my patients and my practice and how I do things naturally. And we've had great results. We've had lots of couples becoming pregnant that have been trying for years and not getting anywhere, or have had obstacles in that. I've had a couple of fellows, at least, that have had very low sperm counts, and in one case, 0 sperm count, and turned that around so that we could have that couple become pregnant. And it happened very quickly, actually, in that case. So, there are many of these influences on fertility that come from the effects of xenoestrogens and endocrine disruptors. And then when we talk about cognition, thinking, learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, these are all affected by these substances. And these substances are not only in our environment in the daily things we're using, like that plastic water bottle, like the melted plastic bags that are used at the restaurant to give you your quote-unquote steamed vegetables that are actually nuked vegetables with melted plastic in them. These kinds of things, and the makeup and so on, are all affecting our health. They add to our toxic load, and they take away from our health and wellness, and they lead to very disruptive processes in our bodies that can lead to very, very bad things, like various forms of cancers. We can fight those things. Okay, we can fight those development processes. We can fight the development of cancer. We can fight these things, and that has to do with our immune system and our immune processes. Our immune system is our primary defense against cancer. And this is one of the issues with chemotherapy is you have the positives and the negatives. It may kill the cancer, but it may also kill all the other cells around it, or it may do damage to your immune system, which is your primary defense against cancer. So there's a lot of kind of catch-22s involved in going at things with that approach. And if you build your immune system, you can actually help your body fight cancer. There are various specific ways that these things can be done. So when you're adding these substances to your environment and to your what you take into your body, what you put on your body that gets absorbed into your pores, you are adding to the toxic load, and you are specifically, in some cases, stimulating the development of those very nasty processes that lead to various forms of cancer, and maybe affecting your immune system and many other things. So this is a very broad subject, as you can probably tell. There are so many different things, and part of why I'm bringing all this up is because of some of the research that I'm doing. I'm working specifically on research, and it's kind of a subset of behavioral medicine, a PhD I'm working on, but the specific subset of that is a broad term and a broad area of study, and it's called psychoneuroendocrine immunology. And you can see there's many components to that, right? So you have the psychological aspects, or the ramifications to the psychology, behavior, and when we talk about psychology, then we can start including things like the learning disabilities and the cognition, the thinking ability, and so on. The neuro part, the psychoneuro, so we've got the neuro part, is neurology. It's affecting your neurology. It's affecting the distribution of your nerves, the plasticity of your brain, the development of your neurons, the spreading of those neurons. All of these things are affected by these substances. Okay? And then we have the endocrine system, endocrine disruptors. They're affecting the endocrine system directly. They're disrupting the endocrine cycle, or the endocrine loop, the closed loop feedback system that is your endocrine system. And that interacts with your immune system as well, and it affects your immune system. And the adrenal part of this has a lot to do with this situation as well. Your adrenal function, your stress in your life. And stress is an extremely large factor in modern life for us. It can affect us in very profound ways, and I've had some of those things happen to me in terms of my life, very profoundly affected by stress. High levels of stress really, really can be damaging to our bodies, and they can catch up with us, and often do. So all of these systems that are kind of tied together, they're all tied together, not kind of, they are. They're very much interacting and interrelated. And this is one of the reasons that so much can be accomplished holistically, because this is a holistic viewpoint. Psychoneuroendocrine immunology is looking at the body as a whole virtually. You're looking at the body, the mind, and of course, what happens as a result of that, or what interacts with spirit, right? So you have yourself encompassed in who you are, encompassed in your interaction with others, and then how we're all tied together. All of this is affected by this. So it's a broad subject, you could say. And so when we talk about the effects of endocrine disruptors, they're not small potatoes. It's a big effect. And one of the areas that I've been researching to a certain extent is trying to figure out how much affects you. How much, like how much does it take to really throw you off. And it really isn't that much, but you know, how much can you be affected by what dosage levels do the effect? Okay, so these are parts of what we need to figure out more, is get more specificity, you know, and this is why it's a very important area of research. And, you know, we are just bombarded by this stuff. I mean, we really are. You know, you walk outside, you breathe in the exhaust, there's xenoestrogens in there, there's endocrine disruptors in that. There's just in the air, you know, you've got so many different things that are affecting you, and that toxic load and that endocrine disruption that goes on. And this also, because it affects thyroid as part of that endocrine system, as well as the adrenal function. This can affect your weight. It can affect thyroid function, and therefore your metabolism, along with the adrenals, affecting your metabolism, and therefore your metabolism is affected, which means that it's usually run down by these substances. The adjustment is downward, and so you end up with hypothyroidism, or you end up with a lower metabolism, something along those lines, and then that can contribute to weight gain. It also contributes to hormonal disruption, obviously, right? So hormone balancing is another part of my practice. It's a very important part, and part of why I can help couples become fertile that were not essentially fertile. I can help them do that and have children, because I work on their hormones and help them to get into a state that makes it easier for them to become pregnant. So I snap my fingers, because in my mind it's like, make it happen, you know, quick. I want to see them get there, you know. And so, you know, working with these issues, we're trying to help improve their lot in life and their wellness, and help individuals or couples have babies as part of all that. And there are so many things that are affected by these substances. So where does that fit in with men in particular? Okay, so men's hormones are affected as well. You know, we have, men have hormones too. And I think sometimes that's a forgotten aspect of all of this. In fact, there was some reference in that Channel 10 piece on my practice and on natural approaches to fertility, some reference to the fact that men are often omitted in the puzzle, you know, and actually men are a big part of the issue of fertility, obviously, right? You've got to look at, you know, sperm count, you've got to look at whether those sperm behave properly, and that means things like motility, which is forward movement toward the goal, and then there's morphology, which is the structure of the sperm, and if it's a normal structure with a normal tail and all these kinds of things. And that can all be affected by endocrine disruptors. So endocrine disruptors are going to affect, for example, testosterone. Testosterone levels are affected by endocrine disruption, and quite often there is an elevated estrogen accompanied by a reduction in testosterone. Okay, and that's an important combination. You know, more estrogen, less testosterone means typically less sperm count, and can disrupt a lot of the processes that lead to good sperm structure and so on, and motility. So all of these things are, again, tied together. And then we can talk about men's health in general, like the ability to perform is one of those aspects as well. And that is affected definitely by xenoestrogens. So endocrine disruptors, and especially, particularly xenoestrogens. And we can work on improving that process or that aspect by using substances that help to reduce the conversion of testosterone to estrogen. Okay, there are processes involved in your body that are affected by endocrine disruptors that will really enhance the conversion. In other words, increase the conversion from testosterone to estrogen. Well, in a male, that's obviously not a good thing. And even in women, it can be very problematic, like it can lend to the development of estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, for example. But we should, we can include all forms of these hormone affected cancers, like ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer, uterine fibroids, fibrocystic breasts, all these types of things can be affected by these xenoestrogens. So you see the influence here. It's so broad. And so if I'm helping an individual, like a guy, with getting his ratios better, getting that testosterone up and that estrogen down, one of the ways is with some simple foods that help with reducing the conversion from testosterone to estrogen. So that helps bring the level of estrogen down, and the level of testosterone is at least maintained, if not brought up. And then I have other substances I use that actually stimulate the development of testosterone. So you don't have to be on testosterone replacement. And in fact, that can be problematic as well. So say you try to offset this increase in estrogen with testosterone as a shot, or testosterone supplementation, or a patch or something like that. There is a response by your body, and this is true for women as well. When we are giving a woman a hormone, like for example estrogen or progesterone, and yes, it may help offset the hot flashes or the night sweats if that's why they're getting it, or vaginal dryness, things like that. But at the same time, it's telling the body, because what happens is it goes into the bloodstream eventually, which is then being monitored by the hypothalamus, which is a part of the brain that is stimulatory, that stimulates the pituitary. So it affects the hormones at the root in terms of how they are stimulated and how much stimulation they get from the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary stimulates the endocrine glands, like the thyroid and the adrenal glands and the ovaries and so on. So the sex hormones and the gonads are part of that whole spectrum as well. And this is complicated because I have to get these things in sequence to help people understand. But when you put a hormone into your body and it goes into your bloodstream, that hormone then is detected by the hypothalamus, that part of your brain that monitors those levels. And the hypothalamus all along has been detecting it and expecting it to be at a certain level. And then all of a sudden you see the surge, right? So the surge in the blood that brings the hormone to a higher level, that's essentially quite often going to cause a feedback to that hypothalamus that causes it to respond by drawing back stimulation of the hormones. So in other words, what we're doing is we're programming the body to produce less, when what we're really looking for is for it to produce more by giving the body those hormones. So we can actually do some counterproductive work by actually putting hormones into the process directly. Okay, I'm going to take another break for a minute or two, and then we'll return and wrap up. So you're listening to A Path to Wellness on WSPF-DB.com, FineOnAir.com, and we'll be back to you in just a minute. Welcome back. You're listening to A Path to Wellness on FineOnAir.com, WSPF-DB.com. And again, we've been discussing endocrine disruptors and the effects on the body, and some of those substances, and how they get into our bodies and how they get into our environments. And they're very important aspect of modern life, in the sense that they affect so many of the processes in our bodies. And we talked about this term, psychoneuroendocrine immunology. Most universities, if not all, at this point, I don't think even explore the psychoneuroendocrine immunology. I think they explore it more as psychoneuroimmunology. So the endocrine aspect is often ignored, but it's actually huge. It's huge. So psychoneuroendocrine immunology, I think, is extremely important in holistic medicine. And as you can see, this is not a minor topic in the sense of, let's just say that the general sense of holistic medicine, I think, is more of it as being kind of fringe and esoteric. I don't think people often, let's say, people may not understand how much research is involved and how much there is to know about medicine and about the physiology and anatomy in the perspective of holistic medicine. And I include psychoneuroendocrinology as a large portion of holistic medicine, even when practitioners may not realize that they are involved in that. I think, we talk about mind, body, spirit. Well, that actually could be analogized to pretty much to psychoneuroendocrinology. We can analyze it from that perspective. So, Bruce Lipton touches on some of these things. He gets into it in his The Biology of Belief book. It was written 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And I think it's an important book in the process of understanding all of these areas of research. And we're still working it. There's still a lot of research being done. And a lot of knowledge being gained through the research. So this is what I'm kind of taking a look at. I'm opening the door to some of those areas of research and some of how that all ties together into wellness. My practice is a path to wellness, just like I call this show a path to wellness. And that's generally the overall picture of what I'm trying to accomplish, is to help people be well. And it's not always easy. There's a lot of things in life that come your way that may get in the way of that wellness. Well, you just have to do a course correction. You have to take it on. You have to take it on. That's all there is to it. If you don't come up to the plate, what else are you going to do? Where are you going to go with that? So part of that process, though, is involved in what I'm discussing today. So another aspect of that is stress. In other words, stress affects, obviously, somewhat obviously, our adrenal glands, right? Our adrenal glands are the key responders to the stressors in our lives. And those may be perceived stressors, or they may be physical stressors, or they may be, emotional stressors, we have so many things that can affect us. And even exercise, which is seen generally as a positive, can be done in ways that stress the body, and therefore they become stressors on the body. And exercise can also affect your hormones. There are some women I've advised to cut back on exercise. I don't know, that sounds like, anti-health, right? But actually it can be the opposite. Sometimes people work out to the point of stressing their bodies and actually affecting their hormones so much that they then take away from the body's ability to function in a natural and normal way. Okay? This can affect hormonal balance. If a woman is exercising extremely, losing weight through the process, and starting to see changes in her shape to the extent that she's losing some of the normal appearance of a woman, that needs to, draw some attention, because what's happening there quite likely is hormone levels are dropping, specifically estrogen, quite often, to an extreme. And especially if it's a menopausal woman, that can be very counterproductive, you know. So we've got to take all of these things into account. And then we have this effect of these xenoestrogens throwing this kind of wild card toxic load into the whole process. So that's kind of a good term for xenoestrogens. It's a wild card because we've got this exposure happening on a daily basis at different levels every day, based on what we're including in our lives, that might affect us in that way. So the xenoestrogens are just so commonplace nowadays. Like I said, they can be hidden. It can appear like something's healthy. You go to a restaurant and you order something that you think is healthy, like steamed vegetables, steamed asparagus, steamed broccoli, steamed vegetables or mixed vegetables, whatever, right? And that steamed word is actually not accurate. And I have a real problem with that because I kind of see it as a false advertisement. You know, when restaurants put on their menu steamed, it should be steamed. It shouldn't be something that's in a bag, a plastic bag, that's thrown in a microwave, nuked, melted into your food. This is not steamed. And there are far more of these kinds of issues. Like, for example, soy in food has estrogenic effects. Okay, so that can throw your hormones off too. For example, edamame is considered healthy by some. Well, it's still soy. If you are getting sushi, quite often soy is part of that. You may have a soy sauce. So you want to keep an eye out for these things and understand how they're affecting you. At least to a certain extent, understand that, this substance is estrogenic. Soy is estrogenic. Other substances, foods, I talked about steamed broccoli. Well, if you don't actually steam it, if you're actually just nuking it in a microwave and you're not extracting some of the chemicals that are in that broccoli, it actually can run thyroid function down. Steaming actually extracts those chemicals, okay? And those are goitrogens that affect thyroid. So you can, by steaming them, extract a lot of that and have less of an effect on the thyroid. The same with cauliflower, cabbage, these kinds of things. Coleslaw. Coleslaw is raw cabbage, right? So raw cabbage is full of these goitrogens that can affect normal endocrine function, specifically thyroid function. Kale, another one. So we need to be more aware of what's in our environment, what we're consuming, what we are putting on our bodies, what we're exposed to in the environment, and pollution that we're exposed to, etc. And try and avoid these substances that add to our toxic load and throw all of these regulatory processes in our bodies out of whack, you could say, out of sync with the way they're supposed to be. All right, so we'll call that a wrap on that topic, but as you can see, it's kind of a detailed, very deep subject and affects many systems, that of endocrine disruptors, many processes. So we have a lot of topics we can talk about on this show, and what I'm contemplating for next week is cancer, getting more specifically into cancer and discussing that and different approaches. I've seen some devastatingly bad results with conventional approaches to the treatment of cancer. I've also seen some great results. And some of them, you know, the outcome is very sad. You know, if you see a friend of yours walk into the hospital, hardly affected health-wise by a cancer, and then 6 days later, he's dead from the chemo. This is not a good result, you know. So there are many aspects to this. A selection of the specific treatments is one of those, and you know, that's the realm of oncologists. But we must remember that the immune system is our primary defense against cancer. So we'll discuss some of those issues next time. And you've been listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com. And the show is based on my practice of Path to Wellness. And if you'd like to reach us, it's at 727-329-9637. Or you can take a look at the website at www.aptw, short for A Path to Wellness.net. So aptw.net to take a look. All right, we'll talk to you next time.